everybody. Good morning. We're going to spend some time today talking about trust, but before we jump into that, if you are in need of closed captioning, you can just turn it on there at the bottom of your screen in the Google Meet. Turn on captions, it says there, and that will give you a pretty good translation of what I say. Also, Shane mentioned upcoming off-the-shelf series offerings. The next one is on April 7th, and it's going to be on employee engagement by Dr. Dan Chase. I'll let you read through that there. He's going to define employee engagement. He's going to talk about helping teams be successful and helping people just kind of get into their work. And I think that'll be a fun topic to cover. April 7th, 10 a.m. We'll send out, like Shane mentioned, we'll send out an email shortly for you to sign up for that if you so desire. Also, 2 weeks after that, we'll have another session. I don't think we have a title quite yet for it, but we will be sending out some information, survey information. We want to hear from you. So pay attention to the email that comes out, and be sure to sign up for that one too, so you can get that information in your inbox and can give your feedback to us so that that session can be useful to you. Like Shane mentioned, this is being recorded. That's me right there. I'm Rick Murdock. I work with DHRM in the leadership and organizational development area. My email address is there, rsmurdock@utah.gov. Jot that down if you'd like to further discuss anything we talk about today, or if you have any feedback for me, questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you. Again, that's rsmurdock@utah.gov. Let me tell you about one other thing that we're doing recently. It's called the Supervisor Survival Guide, and it's available right now on the Employee Gateway. In fact, I'm going to go to the Gateway and show you. Here's the Employee Gateway. This should look familiar to you. Under the Training tab, down at the bottom here, we have a new link to the Supervisor Survival Guide. Let me show you what that is. For those of you that are supervising people, this is just some training, some basic foundational training for supervisors. You would just come into this page here, click here to explore, and get ready for some hiking puns. That's kind of what we're basing this on. It's a survival guide for supervisors, and it'll cover topics like, let me start the course so I can just show you the topics that we're covering in this. Scroll down here a little bit. Leading people, managing employees within the law, so liability issues, onboarding and hiring of people. Performance management is a big module. It's pretty in-depth. This is robust and in-depth stuff that you need to know as a supervisor at the state of Utah. And then, of course, discipline and performance improvement. And we're working on adding another module on inclusion and diversity. So pay attention to that. That's something you can go and access right now, and hopefully that'll be useful to you. The Supervisor Survival Guide, available through the Employee Gateway. Go check it out. You'll get, we'll record your completions as you get through it, and throw it into the LMS so that you know that you've completed it. But that's available to you right now. It might be useful especially for new supervisors, but really for any supervisor that works for the state. Hopefully it will be something that you can use. All right, let's get back into this. Yeah, let's look at my face again. That's a good idea. Okay, here's the agenda for today. We're going to try to build a business case for both offering and acquiring trust, and why it's important for us in our work relationships. And then we're going to talk about developing trust. We're going to talk about the importance of building trust with management, coworkers, other key stakeholders. Trust is a commodity that we need to succeed, and it's something that actually is not going well recently. Overall trust globally is down, and I'll show you that in just a minute. This is something that Governor Cox sent out to some of his cabinet members early in his tenure, just a couple months ago. And somehow it ended up in my inbox. They were given permission to share it with their staff, so I don't think it was any problem that it ended up in my inbox, although I'm several steps away from Governor Cox. But one of the very first things, he listed several things that that people need in order to be to meet his vision for his administration. And that's, true for all of us that work with the state government. And he listed, I don't remember how many items, but the very first item that he listed was trust. And in fact, this is a direct quote from him. Trust, trust, trust. Our success will be completely determined by the trust of the people of Utah, the trust the people of Utah have in our administration. He goes on to say that, he goes on to say a few other things. One of them is he references what's known as the Edelman Trust Barometer, and he quotes how they view trust. And we'll talk about the Trust Barometer in a minute, in a little bit more in depth. But trust is built on two key drivers, and this is what Edelman says: competence and ethical behavior. Governor Cox goes on to say, every person on our team must internalize this equation. Trust equals competence plus ethics, which includes transparency and many other things. The people, I guess speaking about the public, will only follow us if they trust us, and they will only trust us if we are good and if we are good at what we do. In other words, trust is a mix of being good at what you do and then also being good in general. I think that's great. Here's another definition of trust: firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. And it's built through experience. My guess is that many of us have read, studied, at least thought about trust and how it relates to work. It's not a new topic. In fact, there's so much out there about trust that this presentation became a little bit overwhelming to me as I tried to cull through all of it. However, the unique circumstances that we face this year have kind of brought the idea of trust back into the forefront. And it really is kind of front and center in our work lives right now, especially for those of us that were thrust into virtual work or managing people who are virtual workers. Trust is a big, big issue right now. This picture comes from insight.com. The need for trust in the workplace is really fundamental right now. And it's true for any organization, but specifically for the state of Utah. It can be regarded as so important that the issues of trust kind of make or break our organization's culture. Whether or not we trust our organization, and whether or not we trust our bosses, whether or not we trust each other, is paramount to the culture of our organization, the culture of our work teams. And it's really difficult to imagine a team not doing well that isn't trusting each other implicitly. And I mean, especially when we are distanced from each other. It varies by degrees, though. I mean, leadership to employees, employees to supervisors, department to department, coworker to coworker, work team, work unit to work unit. All of it takes trust, and trust is something that it does take time to build, takes effort to build, and it doesn't take much to diminish trust as we kind of move along. One incident can really damage trust, and it's really difficult to build back. There's two different types of trusters, people who trust. One is the person that gives the benefit of the doubt from the beginning, will just kind of intrinsically trust people. The other is the person that kind of doubts from the beginning and then is won over time. And we really ought to be paying attention to how we interact. We should really be paying attention to how people perceive us, whether or not they're the initial truster or the initial doubter. We should make note of that as we build relationships. And the fact is, if we've broken the trust of someone who's an initial truster, it's really difficult to get that trust back. the others, the initial doubters, are actually a little bit easier to win over time. Anyway, that's something to consider as we kind of dive into this. Let's look at a couple of reasons why we should trust. Now, you'll have to forgive me here. We've got two lists of 5, even though it should be one list of 10. I wanted to use 2 text boxes, and I couldn't get it to go to 6, and then that became a whole thing. So we've got 2 lists of 5, which is better than one list of 10, in my opinion. Anyway, this is why trust matters. Trust is good for morale and motivation. When people feel trusted, they feel happier about where they are. I think that kind of goes without saying. I think we've all experienced it. When we feel valued and trusted, our morale is higher, our motivation to do things is higher. It also increases our teamwork and collaboration. It produces increased speed and efficiency. And therefore, as it increases speed and efficiency, we have less time checking in on people, less time worrying and checking their work. That decreases cost. Increased efficiency, it decreases cost. It increases loyalty. It increases the ability to make ethical decisions. Ethical decisions that are difficult are easier to make when we trust each other. It increases loyalty. It decreases turnover rates. It makes people more willing to stay with a company. It breaks down corporate silos and isolation. It's a gateway to being persuasive. Somebody trusting you is more likely to accept your persuasive argument. And it also helps improve employee performance. Trust is the commodity that does that. And it really doesn't cost us anything to give trust. Although it does feel like it might cost us something. I mentioned Edelman's Trust Barometer. I want to show you this. Trust is down overall. These are global numbers. This is not local to the state of Utah or even to the United States. These are global numbers. So take that for what it's worth. But this shows our access to information, information sources, search engines, traditional media, owned media, and then social media. And you can see here that every single one of these items for 2021, meaning the year of 2020 to January 2021, is down. It's an all-time record of low trust for these, well, at least in the last decade, for these items. I guess we've been burned a little bit this last year. And so we're trusting less than we have in the past. And there's a couple reasons for that. But one thing that was interesting to me as I kind of poured through Edelman's Trust Barometer, and you should go check it out. It's quite an interesting read. It covers a lot of what we experienced through the pandemic in terms of trust, and it's interesting to look at. It's global information, like I mentioned, so it's more aggregate stuff. But here's something that was interesting to me. Trust peaked in May of 2020. It went all the way up to 61 units. I'm not sure what those units represent. And then it started to dive again. And overall, we gained a point of trust from January 2020 to January 2021. But really, it's interesting to me that peak happened in May. Think back on the early months of the pandemic and kind of coming together and trying to protect each other, flattening the curve. We just hear a couple of weeks here or there, and we'll be back where we need to be. We became trusting, and then that started to kind of erode. And we're kind of in a place where we're not feeling very trusting. Government, in particular, lost a lot of trust points. I don't know if you can read that, but 8 points down. Oh, sorry, I didn't change my slide. Here you go. 8 points down, government. This is the peak I was just mentioning, 61 down to 56. Sorry about that. Government's 8 points down from May of last year. We were pretty trusting in the government, and I don't know what would have happened. I've been living in a cave, so I don't know what would have happened that would have started to erode trust in government over the last several months, but I don't feel like commenting on it. And there's one other thing to look at when it comes to trust. and that is what they call information hygiene. That's a great way to frame finding information. Information hygiene. How often are we cleansing ourselves when it comes to information? There are 4 elements to information hygiene. First of all, how engaged we are with the news. The second thing is how well built is our echo chamber. Are we living in a pretty strong echo chamber, or are we avoiding the echo chamber? Are we verifying information, and are we amplifying unvetted information? Those are the 4 elements of information hygiene. And as you can see here, there's a lot of us who have poor information hygiene and just a few of us that have good information hygiene. And most of us probably feel like we have good information hygiene, but we're being acted upon a little bit by algorithms and social media in ways that we maybe are not even aware of. And there's no doubt we live in echo chambers. We aren't really vetting information very well. We're pretty sure that we're right and that the other side is wrong. We don't understand how anyone couldn't get it the way that we get it. And there's all kinds of evidence that a lot of people just don't get it. And we get sad about that, right? We no longer trust institutions we once trusted. We tend to pull away. It's easy to do. All right, so what is trust, and how do we build it? Well, one of the things that come with trust is this concept of predictability. Predictability really is the foundation of trust. We're willing to be vulnerable or expose ourselves to some potential risk when we have reason to believe that someone will not take advantage of us or disappoint us. And we get that reason. We understand that people won't take advantage of us when we can predict and anticipate how others will behave. Heidi Gardner, who's one of the authors of the HBR article that I'm referencing in most of my presentation today, she researched more than 3,000 workers and identified 2 distinct kinds of trust that are essential to people who work together. So pay attention to this. This is really important. Spencer Cox already mentioned these. Competence and we'll say integrity, ethical behavior, integrity. These are the 2 things that when we can start to predict competence and integrity, we start to trust that person or that organization. When it's predictable that it will be competent and it's predictable that they will act with integrity, we will trust them. There are 3 key indicators that help us like see this predictability, and they really are pretty no-brainer. But the first one is what they do, the actions that they take. The second one is why they're doing it. And the third one is whether or not they'll continue to do it. So if it's competence and integrity and we see what they do, we perceive it as competent or ethical, and we see why they're doing it, and the reason they're doing it is both competent and ethical, and we find out whether or not they'll continue to do it, and we see that as competent and ethical, then we have trust. We've built trust. So with that as kind of our framework, as our model here, we can start to build trust with each other. There are some reasons to be doing that right now. Turns out when we don't see each other every day, we don't have these intrinsic markers, the what, why, and whether. We don't have that. And trust starts to erode just kind of naturally. We have to be able to see those markers. So as we're working at a distance from each other, we have to find ways to notice what people are doing, why they're doing it, and whether they'll continue to do it. We have to find ways to notice people's competency. We have to find ways to notice people's ethical behavior. We have to be able to see it in order to keep trust strong. So that begs the question, what do we do? What do we do to continue to trust each other? Some companies have started, their trust in their employees as they've worked at a distance, it started to erode. It peaked back in May. We'd figured out this whole virtual work system. We figured it all out and we know what we're supposed to do. We've got it. And then people start to kind of second guess as there's more and more distance and more and more distance. And so some companies have started, monitoring their employees' keystrokes or snapping random pictures through their employees' cameras. Turns out that does not build trust, just the opposite. And many people are saying that when the pandemic is finally over and the economy looks stable again, they will find another job. That probably goes without saying for a lot of the working folks, but that's maybe not the message we want to send. We want to send trust. So, and we want to be able to track competence and ethics. We do. We want to be able to see that. So when we're designing the jobs that we're giving to people, we have to build into it some way for them to show their competence. And then I think we probably just have to trust their integrity. If they can show their competence, let's assume integrity is there. We unconsciously interpret a lack of physical contact as a signal of untrustworthiness. Sorry, I should have changed that slide a minute ago. We unconsciously interpret a lack of physical contact as a signal of untrustworthiness. It's really important that we recognize that about ourselves. Because sometimes when you recognize something about yourself, you can do something about it. Over the past 2 decades, moves toward remote working and the dynamic shift of teams has made information just harder to come by. And there's less and less FaceTime. It means we have less opportunity to observe each other. Instead of seeing that teammate who brings note cards to all the meetings so that they're to show that, not necessarily to show, but so that they're prepared and you see that, you notice that thing. You may not ever notice the note cards that they're holding outside of the view of their camera. So you don't get that little, oh yeah, that person has integrity. That person is competent. You won't see, leftover pizza boxes in the break room that indicate somebody worked late the day before. You just won't get those types of things. And so we have to figure out a way to mitigate that. And I'm not exactly sure what to recommend, although I think there are ways to do it. And again, it kind of comes back to the idea that our communication must be spot on with our teams that are remote. We have to have some casual communication where we're building relationships. We have to be able to ask the detailed questions about work projects without, micromanaging. But we have to be able to do that. As an exercise, I'd like to just take a look at building a business case for enhancing trust in our workplace. And the way I'd like to do this is, I'm going to open up, this is kind of risky, but I'm going to open up a whiteboard here. And I'm going to ask you some questions, if you don't mind. And feel free to come into the whiteboard. I think you probably will see you'll see the link to it in the chat there, those of you that are in the call. I don't believe I'm sharing it here. Hold on, let me share it on this other screen. Give me just 1 second and we'll see if we can get it so everybody can see it, those that are live streaming. Is that coming up? Excellent. Okay. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to ask you some questions. You go into this chat, this whiteboard, and you can probably see my cursor, hopefully. Just go to the sticky note tab there, click on it. It'll give you a space to write. You can write something in there. There are a lot of people on this call, and this may end up being really cluttered and probably the dumbest idea ever. We're going to try it anyway, because we need to build a business case that will help us trust. So first, I'm going to ask you this, and this is kind of our strategic context for this case.
Richard, we don't have access.
It's not through that. You can't click on it through the chat.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Thanks for letting me know that. Let me see if I can fix that. Oh yeah, sure enough. Okay, so let's just make that available to anyone with the link. It's fun testing things on the fly. Thanks for letting me know that, but let's try that now. It looks like we've got at least, okay, people are coming in. Whew, nervous now. Let's see if this works. All right, so in strategic context, I'm going to ask this question. What are the benefits of trusting each other? Just give me a couple word answer on the benefits of trusting each other. You can use the sticky note. I guess if you'd like to, you could use the text box, but I think sticky note might make it a little bit easier. Are we able to do this?
Now we need edit access.
Anyone can view. All right, so let's try this again.
And now it's getting the message that there's too many people, so only a select few can participate.
All right. Well, I guess first come, first serve. We'll let the first 20 some odd people do this exercise. Sorry about that for everyone. I had a feeling that this might be a disaster, and it's almost a disaster, but I think maybe we can salvage it. Let me just ask that question again. What are the benefits of trusting each other? For those of you that were lucky enough to make it into the whiteboard, oh, you're all leaving now. That's great. Peace of mind. Okay, that's great. Thank you, brave soul who added a sticky note there. Anybody else that'd like to tell us, what are some of the benefits of trusting each other? Now, hopefully you can see that as they come through. It looks like we're stacking on top of each other. Let's see if I can move those around a little bit. Okay, peace of mind, efficiency, collaboration, better decisions. We're more open and creative. Look at these benefits. And this is just a few of them, right? There is benefit to trust in an organization, and that is that it's the feeling of being part of something. It's the camaraderie that comes with a familial relationship. We can use that. We can leverage that. All right, second question. We're going to go to the next board here. If there's a little arrow here up on top, and we're going to keep our same test crew. Come with me over to slide number 2. We still seeing that? Okay, good. And let me ask you this question now. Where does trust come from? That's a dumb question. Let's ask this one instead. Who leads out when it comes to trust? Whose job is it to lead out? Yeah, starts with each individual. Everyone can do it. This is a commodity that we have a supply of. We don't have to go out into the field and harvest this. This is something we have a supply of. We just have to have enough courage to use it. So, okay, maybe that whiteboard thing was more of a mistake than a slam dunk. But I appreciate those of you that participated. Thanks. The fact is, trust does start with us as individuals. It's the one thing, well, it's one of the few things that we have actual control over. We can choose to trust people. Now, some of us might be thinking, let me go back to my slideshow here. Some of us might be thinking, but I've been burned so many times. Why should I trust people? Why should I trust people in my team? Why should I? And there's probably some answers to that. Let's see if we can explore that a little bit. Ooh, Ernest Hemingway. This is, I like this quote. And I really liked it when I first found it. It said, the best way to find out if you can trust somebody is to trust them. Turns out, and this is part of why we don't trust our sources of information. Turns out that is a slight misquote of Ernest Hemingway. His actual quote was, the way to make people trustworthy is to trust them. Same idea. Somebody paraphrased it and said it was a quote. But the idea here is that the way to make people be worthy of our trust is to actually give them that trust. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, we don't just leave it there, right? We have to design our work in such a way that we can check in with people from time to time. We can check in and see that they're meeting the standards that we've set forth. There was a bank in this HBR article that I referenced earlier. There's a bank somewhere in the Midwest. It's a regional bank. They had moved to distance work, and about a third, actually 2/3 of their people were working from home. So they had skeleton crews in their actual banks, to do teller work or whatever. The CEO was checking in with people. They were meeting their objectives. They were meeting their assignments. In fact, their number of loans had gone up significantly. And so everything he saw, every indicator he saw showed that the bank was doing very well. But what he was hearing from his people was a lack of trust about whether or not people were doing their work at home. And I think that kind of goes to show that maybe we're looking at the wrong thing. Maybe we're using the wrong indicators to decide whether or not we trust somebody. Again, the elements of trust are competence and ethical behavior. When somebody shows those two things, we can trust them. They are trustworthy. And again, trust is reciprocal, meaning that we give it to get it. I trust you, you trust me, I am trustworthy, you are trustworthy. It grows that way. So often when we talk about trust, we focus on how we develop it in other people, but this misses the fact that trust is bidirectional. Research has shown that the more that you trust someone and act accordingly, the more likely they are to trust you in return. In other words, you having that leap of faith to trust somebody else will get them to trust you. And it will also get them to act trustworthy. I think that kind of, it feels right. But in some ways, it's hard to just let go of that last little bit and just say, okay, I'm going to trust you. What you do is up to you, and I'm going to support you and trust you no matter what that is. That's hard to do. It's hard to get there. So we should build what they are calling a trust staircase, which is incremental trust building exercises, small, repeatable, reinforced steps towards building trust. One little thing at a time. Nothing so big that if it doesn't work out, that we're going to be in big trouble. So one way that we can do this is when we're designing our work for other folks, or for ourselves, really, because there's some autonomy here, isn't there? When we're working at a distance, there's some autonomy. We build our schedule for the day, more or less, and we decide what we work on. In past webinars, I've shown how some of that extra stuff, that fluff that we get when we're sitting in a cubicle or in an office, has kind of gone away, and we're focusing more on the stuff that is more important to us and more important to the job that we've been hired to do. And we're designing that work, right? So when we're designing our work, we should be thinking about a couple of things. And what this does for us is this is all kind of emotional building. We should be thinking about autonomy, Mastery and meaningful work. This is Daniel Pink, by the way. He'll tell us that, and Daniel Pink, who's kind of an expert on motivation and other things, he'll tell us that in order to motivate, people need three things. They need autonomy, mastery, and meaningful work. Well, autonomy comes with it comes with the idea that we're working from home. We are in charge of our day. No one is there to give us a withering glance or to walk by the cubicle and make sure that we're on task. That autonomy is there. Autonomy only works when we feel like we're doing something good with it, though. So mastery is a big part of it. Again, autonomy is ownership, taking a little bit of ownership of the work that you're doing. You get to decide certain things about your work. And of course, that doesn't mean that that you aren't having things passed off by other people or looked at or edited or whatever else. But you have some ownership over your work. That autonomy is important to us when we want to feel motivated and do well in our jobs. The next step, though, is to build mastery. And mastery really is someone with ability being coached, given practice, and given opportunities. And mastery is an important part of feeling like the job that you're in is the right spot for you. So as you lead other people and you bring them into work, make sure that they're getting the coaching and practice that they need and that they're given opportunities. They have to feel, if we want them to feel good in their jobs, if we want to be able to trust them, if we want them to trust us, they have to feel like they have some mastery. They have to feel good at what they're doing. And then finally, the last one is we want our work to be meaningful. Meaningful work really has as many definitions to it as there are people out doing work. Meaningful work is just the feeling that what I'm doing makes a difference in some way. So if we've got employees who are out there and maybe they're struggling a little bit, it might be time to just tie them back into the vision and mission of the department that you're working with. It might be time to show them how they affect the public. It might be time to show them where their piece fits within the puzzle of the overall team. Every so often, it's a good idea to revisit how the work that we're doing in our teams is meaningful. Again, trust is a commodity. It is something that we can use. We have it already. We can earn it from other people by using it on people. It's a wonderful tool for helping build the type of workplaces that we really want. And it's important. And Spencer Cox, again, in his document to his staff, talked about the importance of trust. We have to be able to have people trust us. And again, the best way we do that is by being competent at our jobs and showing integrity in our decisions. That's really all I have for us today. We're a little shorter than we usually are, but I appreciate your time today. Hopefully I've given you some things to think about. You may have scheduled out a full hour for this webinar, so it might be a good idea to just take a few minutes right now while you're thinking about it and just jot down some impressions that you had as you listened to this discussion of trust. Trust is something we have to build. We have to have it. And it's pretty easy to do. It just takes a little bit of a decision to do it. It takes a little bit of a leap of faith. And I think we can do it. Anyway, thank you very much for your time and your attention today. Again, we'll have on the 7th of April, Dr. Dan Chase will be presenting. We'll send an email out with a link to sign up for that shortly. And have a good day. I appreciate your time and have a good day this afternoon. Again, if you'd like to comment or give any feedback, rsmurdock@utah.gov. Thanks very much.